welcome to another video. In today's video, we're talking about lead poisoning. So if you haven't seen this Veritasium video, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right. Watch this video here before you watch the rest of this video. This video won't make any sense if you don't watch this video first. So I distinctly remember regular gas. I remember the most notable thing, and for some reason, regular gas has an image in my head. When I was a kid, growing up, for a certain portion of my childhood, my dad always bought gas at a gas station that had a B-52 bomber above the gas station, right? And the story of that was pretty unique. Like the guy just did it without any permits or something like that. And then over the years, they literally just sold parts off of it. And I don't even think it's there at all anymore. But that picture of regular gas is being, in my head, is being underneath that bomber and smelling the regular gas versus the unleaded gas, and like coming to the conclusion as a kid, like regular gas smells better. Now, I have never huffed gas or like stuck my nose in there to really get a good smell. I mean, literally just standing next to the pump as a kid, you could just smell it. Right? And I think the technology is a lot better now, and that's just not the case. You probably can get a good smell of the gas if you were to try, but I mean, I think they all, it's all work to keep it in as well as it possibly can. So that's my image of regular gas, is this gas station on McLaughlin Boulevard in like Milwaukee, Oregon, the Bomber it was called. So now, Veritasium, I'm going to say that. I don't know. I think that's right. Like, it's staggering, the video, right? The amount of IQ points, the amount of dead people, the amount, leaded gas was so bad for the planet. Like it's mind-blowing, really. And I had a running concept for probably a couple decades of my own personal experience and knowledge and observations that I thought there was an intention, and I still do think there was an intentional dumbing down of the United States population, but there was also lead poisoning, which was unintentional. But then you have when did they know it? How long did it take? Like, this guy's video is the first thing I ever heard of. I mean, I heard of lead poisoning before, and I knew that it was bad, obviously because they took it out of the gas, right? But I didn't have any clue about the total scope and ramifications. So this video was so wow, that I literally started going back through my life and thinking about my exposure to leaded gas and how my life has panned out over the years with my intellect and all this and education, right? And so because I've been tested for IQ twice, right? And it was approximately 10 years apart, so about 16 and 27, right? So 11 years apart. And basically identical results, okay? So, and I'm really high, like 90 percentile. But after watching that Veritasium video, I'm convinced that I probably had genius, because I'm still not technically a genius, right? Currently. But I think I was before lead poisoning, okay? I think, and maybe even quite a bit higher than genius, but lead poisoning, right? And it's kind of weird because I have a lot of memories in childhood that are just kind of just like, lame memories, right? Like, I witnessed a shooting when I was 8 years old. So I think there was a presumption that shooting had some sort of effect on me, right? And that's what, because I literally, like, I remember a point where my mom is yelling across the parking lot in my high school at a teacher. And what is she yelling? Oh, I finally figured out what's wrong with him, right? And I never thought there was anything wrong with myself, but I felt like there was a brick or some wall in between knowledge and it's sticking in my head, right? Which I think there was a lot more going on, like my circadian rhythms, right? So I just am naturally not a morning person still to this day. Like getting up early is just brutal for me, right? And as a kid, like, the ridiculously early, like in the second grade, like 4:30 in the morning or something like that. Just ridiculous for a kid to have to do that, right? So there was more to it than just the lead poisoning, right? Is my point. But the lead, I don't think IQ can be affected by, well, it probably can sleep, neglecting sleep, not getting enough sleep can definitely probably over years probably drop your IQ as well, right? But the lead, right? And now I remember riding around in my dad's old Plymouth Dart, right? And literally smelling the gas riding down the road, smelling the fumes. And this is the 1980s, 70s, and 80s. And my dad had jobs in different places, so we were spending a lot of time driving. Now, I'm not sure if diesel had lead in it back in the day, but for a portion of my childhood, like a summer or two, my dad was a skipper for boats, big charter boats, like 50-footer, and like people would pay to go fishing, and my dad was the dude in charge. And then I was like the deckhand at like 8 years old. And I'll never forget, like in an office full of adults, they're giving my dad shit for having me on the boat, but basically giving me shit for being a kid on the boat, right? But what I distinctly remember about that whole fishing experience was the mornings and the dead calm. And 40 or 60 or 100 or however many damn boats there were, which Westport, Washington, in the 70s, I think, had tons of boats. I mean, there used to be a lot of fish. I don't think it's the situation anymore. But imagine, all the big, 50-foot boats, dual engines, big engines the size of, like bigger than a motorcycle, like an engine. And two of them running. And they start those things up right first thing in the morning and just let them idle. And so as a kid, again, getting woken up early, drugged down to the water, and then just remember just being, Now, I have what I consider to be like a chemical sensitivity. Like I can literally smell things. I use sensitive this and sensitive that, and I'll get a burnish thing on my skin, and like even as a kid, I remember trying to avoid the soap aisles of grocery stores just because I'm pulling my shirt up over my face to not breathe the chemicals in there, right? And so I don't know if that has anything to do with the lead, but I definitely to this day don't like, I wear rubber gloves. I mean, anything to do, if I get like diesel on my skin, I just stop whatever I'm doing and just scrub on that. Now, as far as education nowadays, like, I still feel like I have the hardest time remembering names. Like, that is like, and I've probably lost a good amount of friends or potential friends because I couldn't remember their names. It's so embarrassing. But other than that, like, for example, like, I need to get my my commercial drone pilot's license, and I just, did it. I don't have the license yet. I passed the practice test and all that. I just need to schedule it and doing it, but I've got just truck issues, so I haven't done that. But the point I'm making there is that, like, with education, I can just, nowadays, so I think, like, the effects of the lead probably have decreased. Now, I think, cilantro, believe it or not, is like the one thing that can take heavy metals out of the human body, right? And I don't eat a grip of it, but I have eaten it over my, lifetime. And that may be slowly changing things up. Not quite sure. But it is fascinating how much IQ was lost in the United States. And like I said, I'm pretty sure, like, I had other factors, like my childhood was kind of rickety, but the lead poisoning was probably the number one fact, like, that took me down a good, 15, maybe 10, 15, maybe 20% IQ. Just off the top, right? Just from growing up in that lead era. And then I think there's also a short fuse factor. Like, I have a short fuse, and it's not retardedly short. I'm not like a freak out psycho. I can be, but I'm not typically. But, like, if somebody is swinging on me or something like that, like, I don't care who they are. Like, I just go into, I guess, lead poisoning mode or something. I don't know. And I'm sure that my dad was probably quite affected because he was in his car driving all the time. And I remember one of my earliest, our family earliest cars was a Bug, and those were on regular fuel. And I don't know how the engine was sealed, how well it was sealed off from the cabin and all that. But I mean, just merely of the act of riding down streets in the 70s, 60s, I think it's like the 50s, the 60s, is they created this stuff, the leaded gas, but then the proliferation of the vehicles is what really. So, I mean, they didn't get rid of leaded gas until like the 80s. Some places still have it apparently, but until like the 80s. So it's like 40 years of damage. Like, so my whole like small childhood was affected by that stuff. So, and if I didn't have an even higher IQ that where I brought down today, I wouldn't be able to make this observations and none of this. So you've got, millions upon tens of millions of people that had 10, 15, 20% higher IQs when they were born. Then the lead took them down, and now Dunning-Kruger effect explains how they think they're actual geniuses, right? When their IQs are down into like 90, 100's average, right? So, you got people running around with 70, 80, 90 IQs literally thinking they're geniuses. So, all right. Fascinating video. I hope you liked it. Subscribe. Peace. Have a wonderful day.